Okay, so there's this new series that came out in the most recent weekly Shonen Jump called Witch Watch, and for the most part, it seems like the title perfectly fits the series because of our two main characters. The first is an ogre named Morihito, and the second is a witch named Niko that Morihito must protect or watch over. So that's how the title most likely came to be. Although the premise seems relatively simple, initially Witch Watch has this weird kind of allure, almost an X factor that instantly drew me into the series within just the first chapter. It's not super deep, but at least for now, I don't think it's meant to be deep, more of just a fun, intriguing story. As for the genre, I can't really tell. It seems like there's some comedy, some action, most likely some romance, but at least within the first chapter, it was a pretty fantastic mix of all of the above. So now I want to talk a little bit about the mechanics in the world of Witch Watch. So it's a pretty normal world for the most part, besides the fact that there are obviously witches and ogres. There will also most likely be a ton of other races introduced later, but for now it's just humans, witches, and ogres. So first off, witches, because they seem like the starting point for the power system and just general structure of the world. So the first thing to note about witches is kind of their place in the world and where they fit into society. So it seems like they can just live like regular humans and interact with society in that way, but there's also a completely separated world just for witches. It was stated that Niko went to a school so that she could study and learn magic, and it was actually accessible by train. But the only caveat about the school is that you couldn't get in unless you were a witch. So essentially there's just some huge, almost invisible bubble or barrier, whatever you want to call it, that only witches can pass through. But besides just location, the magic system within itself also seems very promising. So it's pretty much what you would expect for a witch using spells and magic. But there also is one very interesting twist. So for some spells, Niko can just cast them using her own strength, but for others there has to be a trade. Pretty much you can think of it like the law of equivalent exchange from Fullmetal Alchemist, except in the world of Witch Watch it seems much more punishing. So in this new series, to perform certain spells you need to give up something that holds emotional value. The more powerful the spell, the more important thing your sacrifice has to be. So I can already see some great potential for some wild stuff to occur in the story, sacrificing maybe even the lives of other people if it gets that far. But I'll talk more about that in the next section of the video. For now, one other thing that I think we need to discuss is that each witch needs to choose a familiar. Now, normally in witch history they choose black cats or some other form of animal. It seems like the animal they choose doesn't really matter. However, in the past, some familiars ended up absorbing enough magic and turned into humans. And it just so happens that this is what the race of ogres came to be. And the other interesting thing about familiars, ogres, and witches is because ogres were originally just familiars that absorbed too much magic power, there's this contract that ogres essentially just have to serve witches. If they're called upon to serve a witch and they refuse it, they'll get reverted into their original form. And all of this is why our two main characters are the witch in Niko and her ogre familiar Morihito. At least for now, the series will seemingly heavily lie on the back of Niko and Morihito as individual characters and also their relationship with one another. So now I wanted to take the opportunity to discuss them as characters and some of their dynamic. So first off, Morihito, as I've mentioned numerous times up to this point, is of course an ogre. He has superhuman strength, speed, all that stuff, but at least for right now it's pretty unclear as to what extent and to just how strong he is. Another thing about his strength is he's learned some super secret ogre fighting style that has been passed down generations in his family, and it's implied that this might be a swordsmanship thing. So it's gonna be super cool to see when we get more development from there. But more importantly than his strength is more of an internal battle and probably a plot thread that we'll see throughout the series. And this is his unwillingness to fight. He doesn't want to hurt people, so he finds it easier to let them hit him and make it seem like they won. He often questions what the point is of his strength when all it does is cause problems for him. But his father often reprimands him, telling him that he can't be afraid of his own power because if he is, it might not come out when he needs it the most. And this is also probably going to be a pretty significant plot point later on. The rest of the stuff with Morihito is more in his relationship with Niko, so as I have said numerous times, Niko is a witch. She has feelings for Morihito, and she's also kind of dense. Not incompetent because she obviously does have some skill, but she has very, very poor decision making. But I think the most important thing about Niko and Morihito's relationship is a prophecy that was revealed for Niko. Essentially, the whole prophecy was just that some sort of tragedy will happen to Niko within a year, but her familiar will protect her from it, which is Morihito. So from this point, I think I can pretty confidently predict how the series will go and how it will end. So we have a stern but caring character in Morihito, and a free-spirited, spontaneous one in Niko. They'll probably rub off on each other and become more alike throughout their journey. Then there's probably going to be some close calls along the way where Morihito saves Niko numerous times, but throughout Niko's probably going to get more confident and more capable of defending herself. Then at the very end of the series, the tragedy will hit and Niko will have to sacrifice what's most important to her, which would most likely be her relationship with Morihito. Not saying that this will 100% happen, but it seems very, very likely. Even though it's pretty predictable, I did really enjoy the first chapter, and I think the series has a lot of potential. Let me know in the comment section down below which series you like best out of the most recent 3 with Witch Watch, I Tell C, and Elusive Samurai. And if you liked the video, drop a like. If you disliked the video, drop a like anyway.